Ladies and gentlemen, it's a new world order. How the heck are you? Pretty exciting, right? If you think about it. I mean, a lot of us are hanging out at the house right now during this staycation opportunity. And it seems like some people are very nervous and some people are saying, "Hey, I'm going to look at this as an opportunity to do something good for the world and make some changes." So, we can do a lot of organization right now with amongst ourselves and our house, and then definitely the opportunities are abundant because we have this global connection, even though we can be hanging out in the basement, in the garage, in the house, as long somewhere in the house or even in the car. So we have Greg Allison with us today from Green Greg's Worm Farm. Nanny, nanny, nanny. Check him out on YouTube. He actually has a Guinness record for a amateur rocket that he built out of his backyard. Essentially, it's still back there, and he is a contractor for NASA. And we're just going to talk about things that we can do individually to change things, to actually use this as a wonderful opportunity where there is a golden lining. Absolutely 100%. So, Greg, I really appreciate you being a guest on Leak Project. How the heck are you?
Rex, I'm great. How are you?
Dude, amazing. I love it out here. This is actually really exciting because we're seeing what people are all about. And if you look at things logistically, I think it's going to be really good for the nation and for the world, because nations around the world are probably going to realize that it's great to have a globalization program, but it's also great to be independent. So do not rely on everybody else with this transfer system. Start. I think that the majority of the antibiotics are made overseas, and now we're probably going to start making more antibiotics here in the US, which is a good thing. But behind me, I've got this whiteboard out. So while you're talking, I'm going to be taking notes, and we're going to be looking at the pros and cons of what is going on right now. And it seems to me like this shift, there's over $2 trillion that was just signed that's going to be given out essentially in loan to businesses, et cetera. And there's a lot going on. I see this as a power grab in a sense also. And I do see a lot of jockeying and positioning of power behind the scenes because of what's going on. So I'm looking at this as literally a new world order. That's why I have it titled that. There's a lot of new world orders. I mean, there's not just one. I mean, they've been using that term for a long time. So in this new world order, we can be scared, or I think a much better alternative is to be prepared. Be prepared, not scared, because Murphy's Law, Murphy is an optimist. So $2 trillion power grab. Do you want to be in the sine wave or do you want to be in the square wave? So let's talk about it. What are some things we can do to be effective and to change? It's actually, in my opinion, those that are trying to use this for their advantage on a globalized platform, I think it's going to come back to bite them a bit. I don't think it's going to work in their favor. I think it's going to be the opposite. So, my opinion. And this is for entertainment purposes only. Live action role playing.
LARP session. So, Rex, there's a lot of dimensions to this, and it might progress actually with multiple shoes dropping. This might just be the first shoe. We don't know what's coming at us. I did a video talking about the 2020s, the things to come, and holy smoke, did it come on in a fast, furious manner. So a lot of things happening really fast. But, I've told my listeners for some time that no matter how tough it gets, no matter how arduous the going is, always be assured and rest with a positive notion that there is a silver lining around every mushroom cloud.
Now, if you have a Geiger counter and really good lead lining.
Nano.
Somebody said, not the new world order. Man, did you want the old world order? Which is better? Why don't we create the new world order that actually
create our own?
You got to come up with a different term, man. That's too biblical. What about that? What'd you say?
World order, the green world order.
Green world order. Well, what if you don't like it'd be hard not to like the color green. That's my favorite color. But what if, so I like that. Yeah.
Anyway, so I look at it like this. This situation that's upon us now gives us actually an opportunity to develop systems and ways of living that are conducive to survival and resiliency that we might not had the opportunity to develop otherwise, because we can get hit by things that are much worse than what we're looking at right now. This is bad. I'm not trying to belittle it. We may lose a lot of very wonderful, cherished people, and that is the sad part of this. And that is extremely sad. However, there are bugs out there that can take out far more people. Many have heard of the bird flu. Uh, there are actually the bird flus exist, is only transmissible from chickens to humans, and you could have up to, well, yeah, it don't transmit between people to people as yet, but it has a 50 to 60% fatality rate, the bird flu. Now, there are 2 laboratories on Earth that saw it fit to develop human transmissible bird flu. This stuff exists in 2 laboratories, one in the Netherlands and one in Indonesia. That's nuts. It's crazy. Why they ever build that stuff on Earth? That's what you go to the moon for, or somewhere. That shouldn't be anywhere on this planet. And furthermore, Ebola. Ebola is a nasty disease. Fortunately for us, it's only transmissible through body fluids, but it's still very effective for people on touch and contact. And it has like a 50% fatality rate. And, you know, it's just horrible to see the effects of that disease. And there has been, though, we know it's possible because there has actually been an airborne transmissible Ebola. It happened in Reston, Virginia, in a facility where they were testing, I believe it was rhesus monkeys. They were in 2 separate rooms, not even adjacent to each other, some distance apart. And it traveled from one set that had it to another through the ventilation shafts, Rex. They cleaned that building up, got them out, and then they rented it to the company I used to work for, Grumman Space Station Integration Contract. I've been in that building, Rex, where there was the airborne Ebola. I have been there. That wasn't my home office because I wasn't there at the headquarters office. I was at the Marshall Field office doing. Go ahead.
I was just going to add, when you were finished about the Ebola situation, I remember a few years ago when there was, even in the US, there were some Ebola cases. And the interesting thing about that is, if it is, for when I was looking at it from, you know, from just watching the news, and we know everything on the news is true only though if it's the mainstream news. It has to be mainstream, and, you know, and it has to have somebody that looks like a reporter that's essentially reading a script, with the green screen behind them that looks like they're actually on scene. That's how you know it's real. But anyway, remember the Ebola scare in the US even, and then you watch these video clips on the mainstream news, which, you know, everything's real on the mainstream news, kind of like everything's real on the internet. But anyway, they showed these cleanups of people cleaning up somebody that threw up that had Ebola. And they had like gloves on, and that was it. And they were just like, "Oh yeah, let's clean it up, man. You want to go get some lunch after?" Like, "Yeah, let's go to lunch." Like, they really didn't care. And if it's as, I remember the movie Outbreak, Dustin Hoffman showing, you know, how contagious this was and how deadly and vicious. I mean, people, guts coming out of places your body didn't even think was possible. And then you were watching the stuff on the news. And I don't want to get too deep into this, but I remember watching on the news a few years ago. I'm like, wait a second, if it's as bad as it's portrayed, then why are they not really making these precautionary measures that you would expect if, you know, you're looking at it from a realistic point of view and you have some common sense? But very interesting, very interesting. So
the point, Rex, is that given that we're now having to learn lessons of social distancing, of isolation, of how we live in an environment like this, we're building the groundwork for how we prepare for something worse that could come this way. And eventually something will, just naturally. Humanity, once upon a time, the world lived in tribes that were isolated, and something was very virulent would wipe out a tribe, but it would burn through so fast it wouldn't go to the next tribe, or at least it wouldn't go through too many, and it would burn out in some locality. Now the whole world, thanks to 2 things. One, if you go back to the Spanish flu era, at that time, 90% of the people lived in the country. They were rural. Now 90% of the people are packed like sardines in cities, and the cities are highly interconnected through mass transportation that did not exist at that time. Mass rail, highway, and our air travel system. There was no international jet traffic back in 1918, 1920. There was no international air traffic at all. That's all new. You still have to get on a boat. Today, the world is one big petri dish, one big village. And so we can expect things like this to pop up a lot more often and spread fast. So we are ready and prime for something like this to happen. We do have more technology today, so we can start getting on it, combat it, maybe better and faster than they did then. But it takes, right now, it's taking us like a year and a half to develop a vaccine, if you trust the vaccine that would be developed. One of the things that Dr. Paul Cottrell was pushing for, and I advocate, is a lot more transparency in the development of platforms for that kind of stuff. But we don't want to go in too much into those topics. But the whole point is that we have a learning experience that can teach us a new way to live. And I think we need to start adopting some of these new ways of living, because some of them are actually advantageous. They're better for the environment. They're better for the world. They're better for the people. Take, for example, work at home. Rex, welcome to the Greg Allison Space Flight Center. This is my work computer here at home. I can do anything here that I could do with the office. We had a meeting today over the computer, and we exchange documents. Most of our documents are on servers. We have email. There's several different programs we can use depending on what the security level we require for communications and group meetings and things like that. I mean, we can do video just like you and I are doing right here. You and I are having a meeting of the minds. Anybody could load the software we're using and have a video chat. I mean, this is something that's available to anybody and everyone that so desired to do that. And you and I know how to exchange documents, but a lot of places, they share servers, and a lot of these servers are secure servers. I can work from my secure server right here and work on documents that have various levels of classification. And it's mostly for us, it's proprietary things, and things where it may be ITAR, where you can't let technology go overseas. Now, I don't get to work on the fun stuff a lot of people think about, the woo 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 woo. I don't ever see that in my day job. but here's the thing: when you're working this way, you're not having to drive to the office. You're not having to drive back from the office. You're not building up all the stress of fighting traffic. You're spending an hour or two less on the road. You're burning less gas. When you get to the office, and you see your coworker, you bite them, or they bite you, or you come home and kick the cat, make the spouse mad, and then they kick you or whatever. I mean, that stuff don't happen. So I had a friend just tell me today that his blood pressure was about 20 points lower because he was able to work from home. And he has quite an arduous drive. So the situation is that you could get away with, they're struggling at work to save energy because of all the energy people use, and they have these goals that they have a hard time meeting. This is a way to meet them. I mean, you're not going to be using the energy. In fact, you don't need all the office space. You don't need all the offices. With people driving less, there's less wear and tear on roads. We wouldn't have to spend so much money repairing it and building highways. If people live and work from home more, and I did mention I've got on a PowerPoint file I can pull up in a snap here and show people. I've got a habitat concept that you can build, make a living out of, live out of, and grow all your food out of, and be almost totally self-independent out of that home on 1/10 of an acre, Rex, and feed a family of 4 out of that dimension. And I've also done videos with the Gervais family in LA, and you were with me back when I was doing that, talking about how they do just that. So there's a lot we can do, and this is an opportunity to try some of these systems out and get people more accustomed to it. The biggest impediment to working from home is the cultural inertia a lot of the older guys have, that they just feel like they got to see everybody face to face. No, people mess up and screw around. I think we work harder when we're working from home because we got to prove and show that we're actually doing something.
Let me jump in on that, because I think that in some cases you're absolutely right, but I think a lot of it has to do with personality, and some people work better around others. Some people might, if they are working at home, they're going to wait until the last minute to get everything done. And how would I know anything about that? But I remember back in the day when I used to work at home and they wanted me to do cells at home. And I was like, I'd wait until the very last minute. I'd get it done, but I'd wait until the very end. But dude, I see so many benefits to this, Greg, because not only are people going to be more innovative, right? They are going to have to prove that they can work out of their house, because if things do, right now, this is like a test for everybody to see what they're made of. This is a test for those in different industries to maybe figure out a different opportunity as well. I got family and friends that are in, I know somebody in particular that she's a waitress, and they laid her off. She's at home. She's going to college. She just bought a house. Her husband, he's selling cars, and he's not selling cars right now. What I did tell him, I was like, well, you know what though? If somebody's going in to look at cars right now, they're a buyer. They're looking to buy. They're not kicking tires. So look at the bright side, buddy. But here's another cool thing, dude. Trading. I'm absolutely enjoying learning these graphs and these charts, and I think that that's one thing people could do. Is you could learn how to be like a day trader, or you could learn how to get into cryptos. You could learn how to get into stocks. You could learn how to get into precious metals. TradeLikeAGenius.com. My friend Bob Kudla, he's a good friend of mine. He's very knowledgeable. I mean, he shows people with platforms that are algorithms that are designed to take out the guessing, that are fantastic algorithms, and they'll send you trade alerts to your phone so you'll know when to buy or sell these certain cryptos or stocks. But that's something you can do, and you can learn how to do it an hour a day, or you can just say, hey, I just want to get these alerts. And then when you get these alerts, they do a couple of trades. And that's one thing you can do to try out yourself. I think it's pretty cool. So if you're interested in checking that out, folks, it's tradelikeagenius.com. Use the code MARCH, get up to 45% off non-bundled items. I got into some Bitcoin about a week and a half ago. I think I got into it about 5,100, and it almost hit 7 recently. And then right now it's sitting at about 66.50. I mean, that's about a 25% gain in a week, man. That's pretty awesome. What are your thoughts on that, Greg?
Yeah, that's awesome. But see, here's what people need to do. There are actually a lot of opportunities right now because there's things that people need. There's things you're not getting. There's things that you're hard pressed to come up with. And so there's suppliers that can't supply. There's buyers that can't get it. So if you can figure out how to put these two together, if you can use your ingenuity to figure out how to fill a need, there's a lot of needs right now that didn't exist before, but there's also a lot of people that aren't working. So this is the beauty of private enterprise, is that you have the freedom to do this, unlike a command type economy society. So what you can do is just ask yourself, what is it that's needed? What do I need? What am I having a hard time getting? Or what can I provide to somebody else? I've done a lot of videos where I'm talking about how you could grow food, market gardening, how you can raise worms, things like that. But then some people live in a city, they're in an apartment where they might be able to grow a little bit to eat for themselves. I do have videos that show you how to grow in your home, because I grow microgreens in my living room. That's it. In fact, I can grow a lot of food in my living room, more than I can eat in my living room. Now, all that on just a rack. Now, all that said, you may ask yourself or say to yourself, hey, but I can't really make a living that way. Actually, there is a guy in Baltimore who sells $100,000 a year in microgreens from a bedroom in his house within just his zip code in Baltimore. Now, but aside from that, there is another opportunity that occurred to me that would fit very good with the urban individual, and that is a courier service. And I did a video on that. I've started a new video series, and I call it QRN Teen Living. So I'm trying not to put too much on here. It's not a problem on my channel. I've not got demonetized for saying that, but that is the name of the series. And I'm talking about, and I want to cover more and more about things you can do to make a living, how you can live at home and take advantage of the situation of being more restricted. So one of these ideas I come up with was the courier service. There are companies out there that are looking for couriers, that if you have a vehicle that's less than 15 years old, you can sign up to them and become a courier for them. And you can make actually good money. It's kind of like Uber. There are, and maybe people would even want to set up a software system and come up with a similar analog themselves. Well, they're not quite like Uber, but they're kind of sort of close. But basically you can bid on loads and things like that. There's a lot of load bid type websites out there, but better yet, you could, even with a bicycle, something you can carry on a backpack or in a bike trailer. You could carry small things. A lot of deliveries right now, a lot of things that people want are small items. You don't require to have a lot. You could move things in a car. Now, if you've got a truck, a pickup truck, a van, a panel truck, you're better off, of course, in a courier service. At most you might have to buy a dolly, 20 bucks at Lowe's or Walmart, or I don't know about Walmart, maybe Home Depot. You could buy just a couple of little items and have all the equipment you need. So it's not necessarily a heavy investment. Or you might have nothing, but decide, hey, I want to go buy a panel truck. You could probably pay for it. doing this. But look into it. That is just one area, because a lot of people aren't able to go out. Traffic is being limited, but couriers, even in CHNA, are moving around. They're allowing them. They're not shut down. So that is a good way to look to get into things. Now you've got to keep and establish certain health and hygiene protocols, because you will be out in public. And I talk about that in that video. So that is just one of many, 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 many ideas. Like you said, be a trader. There's many things you can do on the computer. I like the idea of growing things. So you can grow food, because right now you go to the grocery stores and the shelves are bare. There's a demand for food, and people aren't able to go eat out as much. Maybe a catering service, but one area that farmers markets might not be available. It will be regional where they are and are not farmers markets, but a community supported agriculture, CSA, where a farmer boxes things and sends them out to his customers directly, is going to be a huge growth. I've heard a few farmers just went into that and they're selling out immediately. So there's a huge demand for that kind of thing. The restaurants are hard pressed. Maybe you could deliver for restaurants. I do cover in how you can start an independent courier service, how you can make the contacts and make the deliveries, and what you need to do, name your company and go file it, and all these little various things, so that you can actually make money as a courier. You can make money growing things. You could make money raising worms, because you know what? Right now, I got people wanting worm castings and worm poop, and because I've been selling so many worms, I've just been turning most of that back into the worm beds, because I didn't want to lose any eggs. Because right now, I've got a huge demand for worms. There is no shortage in worm cells right now. There's some things that just is bad times. You want to sell a lot more of, but I've been selling more and more all along anyway. If you were somebody that raised seeds right now, you'd be doing well, because more and more people are starting garden. I just went and tried to get some carrot seeds. I'm planning to plant tomatoes, and carrots and tomatoes go well together. So I thought, well, let me get a few carrot seeds to plant when I swear I set my tomatoes, because I'm planting the carrots now. But so I went, and they were cleaned out. They only had one variety left. They said, wow, the last 3 days we got mobbed. They didn't have but one variety. Well, I will order several seeds, and a variety of seeds, through Tree Leaf Market. And that's one of the companies that I have in my channel. I'm an affiliate for, so if people are interested, they can click links on my channel. Oh, by the way, I do have 2 YouTube channels. One of them is Green Greg's, as most people in here know. The other is Galactic Greg's. It's a space channel. So, and so the whole prospect here is, how do you get used to what you're living in? How do you accustom yourself to it? And that stuff I will cover in Galactic Living. Excuse me, in Quarantine Living. There is, which is kind of like Martha Stewart living, or Southern living, which started back in '66, much older than Martha Stewart living.
I like that name, Quarantine Living. That's funny, man. And I wanted to jump in on a few things that you said, because I'm taking notes here, and I think that this whiteboard is going to help us have at least help me put my thoughts down here. So, order out of chaos, or so order or chaos, or order out of chaos. And then you wrote fill a need. So when you brought up that courier service, I think that's great. And then also, what about maybe designing some type of algorithms, or some type of programs that can be, you can design an app or something for somebody's phone, or that could benefit the world. And what about maybe what else did I have right here? The micro community thing. This is what I wanted to talk about. I thought this was pretty cool. On eBay recently, I saw a missile silo that was decommissioned, but it was essentially not only a missile silo, but this huge area with a helicopter pad, and there was these computers in there, so you could essentially use it to mine some type of crypto. And it's in it's a lot of land. It was like 8,000 square feet total. So that would be a pretty cool stay-at-home business. You could buy something like that, and you could do all sorts of cool stuff, man. But I was going to ask you about that town too. Was it Tombstone, or is it Tombstone in Georgia? It was like 40 buildings and a decent amount of land.
Toomsboro for sale. So if you're still interested in buying a town, you can buy the downtown in Toomsboro. There's still houses on the outside, but there's a theater. There's a huge, nice inn there. You might say a hotel of sorts. It's beautiful. You might recall I actually mentioned that I had actually dreamed about being in a place like that, and I'm looking at it and go, wow, that was like in my dreams. But of course, I don't see myself buying that tomorrow morning. But I did do a video on that tombstone. In fact, I might have done two of them because I went back because there was in the previous video I heard voices, in the camera, and it was like weird. I didn't hear them until after the video. It's like, what was that? So that was odd.
I
So I went
remember
back.
that. That was odd.
So I
Yeah.
went back. I went back to try to recreate that or see if we could detect anything like that again. Nip, zip, nothing.
Very, very, very interesting, man. So okay, we're talking about some solutions here, and also I'm looking at this as giving these micro communities a boost, maybe. What do you think? Do you think that also towns and cities and communities are going to start being more localized, and they're going to?
Right, right. I think
What is
that's
your take on
important.
that?
I think that's important. In fact, if the watchers of my channel know, I've been talking a lot about tribes. I actually have an email that I've asked people to send an email to because I'm planning after I get my taxes done a few things to collect all these and collate them and see who lives where and who's got what kind of skills to see what we can do for organizing various community tribes in various parts of the country. I'm already working with a couple in Northeast Arizona. I've been there and we're trying to set up a little worm farm. They've got 160 acres. They don't want me to tell you who they are, where they are just yet, because they want to keep that private. They're not knucklehead like me. As a prepper, you're not supposed to tell the world I'm a prepper and I'm right here. But then again, I'm the kind of guy that, I've got worms to feed. So the zombie apocalypse is something I'm looking forward to. So, I joke and have fun with this. But anyway, so actually the tribes, the communities, the local groups are the way to go because you can support each other. It's a way of having a joint prepping organization because a lone prepper doesn't stand much chance by themselves because you've only got so many bullets and you got to sleep sometime. And sometimes you're sick, sometimes you're down. You need somebody who can have your back, and more than one or two people. You need a good sized family. You need people that are trained in how to grow things and tactics. You need to be able to fight. You need to be able to defend your home. You need to be able to grow food. You need to be able to know how to take care of people when they're hurt, when they're sick. How do you do first aid? What can you use for medicinals? I do cover medicinals from some of the plants and things like that in some of my videos. I cover wild edibles. You might have to go tactical. You may have to, even as a group, bug out. Because you're talking here. The title of this is NWO: How to Survive and Thrive. With under the NWO, the New World Order. So there's many dimensions and levels to that as we progress toward that kind of thing. I have talked in some of my videos about the human hive soon to arrive, and I had a kind of a picture of a hive honeycomb with a sunset behind it. Although you can't see, there's a central mass of a tall cell tower in the center of it. It's not really readily visible in that photo. And there's like pictures of me in the cells. Like one half of them are like Green Greg's pictures, and the other half are like Galactic Greg's pictures. And there's a different picture at the top and bottom, just to throw the balance off. But anyway, I was having some fun with that, like I was the bees or the ants in the cell or something. But so and then I did one about staying out of the hive. I did a follow up to that. It was free range people. That's what I called it. And I showed a bunch of us scratching around in a garden like a bunch of chickens, free range chickens. So that's what you'd have to be, is free range people in the end, which means that you don't. I do not advocate taking a chip. I do not advocate certain things or an embedded computer, the neural lace, because if it starts out good, it may be wonderful. And at first, you're going to really enjoy it probably when you take it. And oh man, it's the greatest thing in the world. You'll be able to think, 2,000 times faster and do a year's worth of work in an hour. Or you don't need all these badges and security systems because you walk in, they know who you are. Carrying wallets is gone. So, you don't even need a computer keyboard because it all goes straight to it. You don't need a console in your car because it's right in your head. So it would seem to have a lot of advantages, but then see, even if it all starts out with no malintention, power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And somewhere, somebody's going to find a lot of power in a system like that. And then there's always that snot-nosed kid in grandma's basement. He's hacking away. He plans to take over the system and take over the whole world. Rex, I see him. I see him through the camera. He's right there. He's in his basement, in grandma's basement. He's going, yeah, yep. So You've got to worry about things like that. Who is it that would be planning? And many characters might try for that. So that is the ultimate hive, the ultimate new world order that would convert everyone to ants, slaves, if they deem you something other than a useless eater, somebody that provides them value, then you might be permitted to exist. Yeah, at first it would lure everybody into it. It'd be like the sweet fly bait, but in the end, it is fly bait, which is a poison. So I would not want to take that chip. I would not want to take that neural lace because of just where it could go. And besides that, something like that in your brain, if your mind is reliant on a machine suddenly to do a lot of the processing, maybe intercommunication between your neural networks and your mind, your synaptic relays might start to wither, and your brain would atrophy. Your natural brain might just atrophy, and suddenly, if it goes out, you'd be a vegetable. You wouldn't be able to communicate with yourself. So the ultimate hack might be that your operating system is Windows and just crashes. So no, I don't want that. But how do you stay away out of that when everybody's requiring you to do it? We do that by having our own totally independent, self-reliant, resilient tribes, groups, societies, micro communities, that we've got our own economy. We exist within ourselves. Tribal Indians did that. They had their own economy. Now they live simple. I mean, maybe the only thing they traded was pottery and flint. Flint was a good trade item, you could make arrowheads out of it. It was beautiful. And, maybe to trade for some flint, you made some pottery. You might have traded pipes or some really simple things. Maybe you were really good arrow shaft maker, or really good fletcher. So there were things like that. But the trade was, not a whole lot back in those days. We can do a lot more than that, a lot better than that. We have a lot more tools at our disposal. We have a lot of knowledge today. Of course, if we get rocked too hard by events, then we can be knocked back down to that level. So we don't know what shoes might drop next. I mentioned other bugs that might come crawling around, but we also, something we have forgotten about in the pandemonium of all this stuff going on today, is that the magnetic field of the Earth is still it's still shrinking. There's a lot of other things that's still going on. China is still actively pumping their military, and they're threatening to EMP our ships in the South China Sea. There is the Iranians are still backing groups that are shooting and killing soldiers of the United States in Iraq. So there's a lot of stuff still going on in the world that we don't even hear about anymore. But that magnetic field really concerns me, because that means a much smaller solar storm could take down our power grid. And then I've had certain individuals who had dreams and visions and this girl who lives on a farm in Wisconsin described to me what I had already considered to be technically the optimum way anyone would launch an EMP attack on us. I'm going, really? She's telling me this? How did she get that? How did she come to see that? A lot of your weapon systems experts wouldn't even think of that. And there's something I was thinking of. And it's like, ooh, and it was a vision. And the vision was the United States coming under an EMP attack in December of this year. Now, we'll talk about that more in the future. I got to get her on my show and talk to her. Look, it don't mean it's going to happen. And even visions were sometimes provided as a means to get people to change their ways, to repent or whatever, like Jonah with Nineveh. So you can, there are ways. The future is a multidimensional aspect. Rex, once upon a time, I held this funnel up and I described the universe as a multidimensional thing, an artifact that, as vast as it has so many dimensions, but it's still in its entirety an artifact, a thing that to the greater creator on the outside, it might look like this funnel. But to us, lost way in the midst of it, it's mind-boggling. Fortunately, I do believe, and I firmly do believe, there is a greater creator, because there's so many aspects of this creation, and it's so grand and so wondrous and so huge and broad and complex, far more than the little flatter world with a dome over it that the flat earthers believe in. So I've been trying to knock it.
I want to jump in on that, because I'm literally still thinking about that podcast I just did with Ken, and it's like, did anything good come out of that, or did people just get upset? I did that to help people, and I feel like it just upset some people, and those that already know, they're like, well, I already know this, so it's not a big. So I'm thinking to myself, was that even, because Ken's brilliant, man. It's like Ken's so smart. He literally designed, or not designed, but he created mathematical formulas that are more accurate than Newtonian when it comes to the shape of the earth and GPS and such. And it became open source, and there's defense contractors using it and for their ICBMs and such. And people were arguing in the chat about saying, "Oh, you need to get somebody else on to talk about this." And I'm just like, like Zorg's ready to come out, dude. Zorg is so ready to come out. And I'm just like, well, I mean, so anyway, I feel like I kind of feel bad about that. But should I feel bad?
No, no, don't feel
I'm
bad.
trying to help people. I got to take out that word try. So I'm just trying to help people. I'm not helping them because there is no try and do. So maybe that doesn't even, maybe it didn't help anybody. Maybe it just made people more, maybe it makes them believe even more in the, the earth doesn't have any shape to it, or, just
Okay,
infinite plane. Maybe that just solidified it even more because because it wasn't explained good enough for them to understand. I don't know, but see, I'm digressing again. I'm doing it again. I'm muting myself, Greg, right now. I'm muted.
Rex, everybody in the world has their own worldview. And once you have a worldview, you tend to take in things, all information in a way that supports the worldview you have. You view the world through your own rose-colored glasses, the tint that is set by your worldview. And so once you have that worldview established, that's how you see everything. Everyone, you notice that two different people will see the same datum and they will interpret it oppositely because they have diametrically opposed worldviews. Now, it's the same datum, it's a valid datum, but the way it's interpreted can be 180 degrees out of phase, as we say in electrical engineering parlance, which means directly opposite. So that said, what you're trying to do is change people's paradigm, their way of seeing things. That's not easily done. You got to kind of build up to it and while get them to realize you got to kind of sneak up. You won't get all of them, but you might turn a few around because once people are set in their worldview, it's hard to get them out of it. But and for those that are hard set, now some aren't hard set. They're the ones that you might be able to work on. Some people are teeter-totter on the fence. They don't know what to think. All this stuff they're hearing's got them confused because they hear it from this side, they hear it from that side, and they hear things presented as being scientific that are far from scientific. They hear supposedly evidence that's totally bogus. I have seen people set up the lasers out in the desert and point them, and you can see the drop of the Earth's curvature. But then I hear somebody else say, "Oh, we put the laser out there, blah, blah," and then it was all the same. No. And working RF, radio frequency stuff, we know in the RF world that the world has a horizon. If you go out and look at the ocean, you can see the mast of the ship come up before you see the other parts of the ship. That's how Columbus figured it out. The Greeks did it with shadows in the wells 200 years before Christ. And the Greeks not only figured out the world was round, they actually accurately computed the diameter. The Greeks were brilliant. And it was just simple math on the shadows from two different wells. They knew the distance apart of the wells, the difference in the shadows, and they just did the trig and the math, and bada bing, bada bang, they had it. It was easy.
Dude. Oh my goodness. Somebody just said, when I got done talking, they said, "Rex, you should feel bad because you exposed yourself as a shill." You got me, man. You got me. You're right.
All right. Well,
aren't people amazing?
Yes.
You gotta love them. My goodness, it's so hard to please everybody. And do we even want to anymore? So yeah, you got to have some thick skin sometimes.
Hey, somebody said there was no Santa Claus. That really hurt. That's why
That hurt me too.
That's Rex. That's why Santa Claus appeared.
Yes, exactly. Well, so you're talking, okay, so let's get back into like this transition right now. I certainly see the polls of ticks on both sides, jockeying for positioning. I do see that this crud bug that went around the world, or at least the media has portrayed as going around the world, to the point of I've got friends and acquaintances literally around the world in all different places of the world. And I'm hearing things from they can't go 100 feet from their house to, they're making their own face masks and such to try and protect themselves. but you know, it's certainly had its opportunities. And what's interesting is with all of this that's going on right now, man, I totally don't even know where I'm going with this. I just got 5G. I
Mm.
totally got 5G. I've been spending a little bit too much time at the dispensaries out here. Where was I going with this? Help me out. I had something really important I was going to say. And then Santa Claus. Was I going to say something about Santa Claus? I don't remember. Does it even matter? I mean,
Hey, folks, wear your face mask.
yeah,
It don't
it's,
do as good when you got a beard under it, but hey, it beats nothing. At least I can't stick my finger in my mouth.
I remember. Yeah, you can't. Yeah, that's where I was going with this. Put a face mask on so you can't stick your fingers in your mouth. So this change that seems to be happening, I see an usurping of power. I see that it started on one side, and actually, in my opinion, the current administration is doing a fantastic job of now say, no, you're not going to use this to make us look bad. We're gonna flip this around on you. That's kind of what I'm seeing. I think it started off on the other side where they were like, oh, look what we can do now, and the market's going to tank right before the elections, and they're going to be like, ha, you know, we got all your money suckers, and you know who was in. And anyway, so that's just my opinion, what I'm seeing. But it seems like now they're kind of flipping it around, and that looking glass technology, man. I think President T's a time traveler. I'm just saying, because something happened. I mean, he's like, no, I'll flip it right back around on him. Because think about this. Now, folks, just think about this for a minute. I'm going to go on a quick rant and I'm going to mute myself again, but this is important in my opinion. So the commander in chief, like, who do you want the commander in chief to be? What do you want that person to be able to do? Do you want, I mean, I was thinking about that. What would be the perfect commander in chief to you? Would it be a man? Would it be a woman? Would it be a robot? Would it be an artificial intelligence system? What kind of hair would he have? I mean, what kind of hair would she have? What age? What college? All these things and all these formulas you put together. What would make it ideal? But what's the most important thing? Well, do you really want to vote for somebody that doesn't even know they're running for president? They think they're running for Senate? I mean, seriously, think about that for a minute. You know who I'm talking about. Somebody's like, they're like, yeah, running for, no, oh yeah, that's right, I'm running for president. Yeah, buddy. I mean, if you can't even remember that, dude, do you really want that person running the country? Or do you want this person to be on the ball, literally on the ball? Hello. Do you want them to know about the technologies, to be able to be a good businessman, good at communications, and also like strong, right? I mean, you don't want somebody that's like 90 years old and they can't even remember what they're running for. And this is just stuff I'm thinking. I mean, wouldn't that freak you out, dude? Doesn't that? But they're like, well, no, it's okay because it's the people behind them. They're just a spokesman. But do you really think that? Because you're saying this person's the most important person in the world, and now you're spinning and saying they're just a spokesman. Which is it? Make your mind up. I mean, are people that mind controlled, Greg? Yes.
Well, you know what worries me, Rex, is that between the two parties playing their games, we're the loser. I mean, we're the ones that stand to lose because they're serving their own interest, their own parochial party interest instead of the interest of the people. Is how can we game the situation? How can we take advantage of it? And there's that old adage that we used to hear from Solinsky that Rahm Emanuel was so famous to quote from: "Never let a good disaster go unused." But that works two ways because we too can use this to our advantage, and we need to take control back. We need to be the ones that say, hey, this is our society, and we need to go for independence. That's the best way to do it. And that's why I think the communities, the micro communities, the tribes, let's just unplug from the system because they have their power because we're plugged in, because we buy their stuff, because we give them what they got. Just quit giving it to them. Take it back. I mean, right now we're not giving it to them. That's what they're really worried about. That's why they let turn us back on. Take it back. Keep it. Hold it. Let's develop our own little economies. Let's develop our own little tribes. Let's develop our own little worlds, and let's live according to our own needs. And the cool thing about having your own little tribes and communities, you can bring people in and vet them, and before they intermingle with you, you can maybe put them in another house or a little area of the community and give them 14 days or however as long required for whatever's going around at the time to pass. So you make sure that they're clean and they're not going to infect the people inside. And then the people inside can be very sociable with each other because you're all vetted. We are social animals. Humans are social animals. So to completely have us in complete isolation is not a good thing. We do need company. We need camaraderie. and we need families. We need to be able to hug. They say if you keep good mental health, you need 14 hugs a day. But to have that, maybe we need our little communities that we can, rest assured that when you get a hug, you're not going to die. So you don't have to worry about it. Somebody gave me the hug the other day, and it's like, wow, I really appreciate this person. I couldn't say no. I had a couple of hugs recently, and it's like, wow. You worry about it a little bit afterwards. You say, maybe that wasn't a good thing. But some people just can't say no to. I mean, they're people you think the world of, and how do you deal with that? So if we have our little tribes, our little communities, we can totally be in control of that, and we can live as people within our own little microverses, within our own little micro worlds, plugged into ourselves, and then we interface as we need to through the internet. Hey, another thing you can do is have 3D printers. You could do so much locally if you got this type of home I'm talking about, Rex, where you can make a living out of, live out of, grow all your food out of. You don't really need anything. I mean, you don't even need energy because it's got a lot of thermal mass. This concept is so beautiful. And in fact, I've got a group that's developing this as a space habitat on a simulation world that we're planning to release this hopefully around and for Yuri's night, but it's going to be like a couple of days off of the 11th of April. Excuse me, the 12th of April was the anniversary of the Yuri Gagarin launch. 11th April was my dad's birthday. He would have been 99 if he'd lived. He just passed away a few days ago. But all that said, 12 April is Yuri's night. I think they're going to do this a couple of nights later. We'll I've not been as engaged with them as I need to be, but I've got to jump in there and and make sure we get the right spin on this habitat they're building. It looks pretty. It's not exactly look like the one I did, but it's very well rendered. My version of it is a drawing. Can I go to it and share it here, Rex? Let's see. Let me see.
Now, what is it exactly that you're wanting to share, Greg? The habitat thing?
It's a PowerPoint drawing. I've shared it on your program before.
Yeah, please. That'd be great. Somebody was actually asking about that, so I'm glad you brought it up.
Yeah, let's go to it here.
Cool.
I had this on here before, and let me go and enlarge this.
Oh yeah, this was the presentation. That's your daughter, right?
Oh yeah, on the left, that's definitely my daughter. Yeah. What's the most beautiful thing in the universe? And I said that was her 21 years later. So
yeah, man. That's awesome.
Let's see, where's the enlarge button? Here it is. Let's see. Well, here we go. Yeah, there it is. Yeah, I presented this at LeakCon, as you might recall. And this is a concept for a home that you can live out of and make a living out of based on I think this one is shaped like a hexagon. No, this is yeah. You can do them circular. And this thing has got, I think I actually drew the walls a foot thick. They should be 2 foot thick, or at least 18 inches. And it's got partially underground. It's got berms. Now, how deep it goes underground, if it goes underground at all, is going to depend on the drainage in your area and several other factors. And the more you can put it underground, the better for thermal mass, for radiation reasons. But you can accomplish pretty much the same stuff by having thick walls. You can build these adjacent to each other and come up with a similar, sharing of heat and thermal mass. And room and facility. Now this one is shown as if it's built out to itself. And basically, this is your living area right here, and that is 1/20th of an acre. And so an acre is 43,560 feet. So if you divide that by 10, this would be over 4,000 square foot just on the surface. But there's 2 levels here. Okay, so that is the room. That's the area across here, essentially. But I got 2 levels here, so you've got a ginormous living space actually, and plus you've got you can have the bottom as your workshop where you can grow mushrooms, have a 3D printer, a lathe, a server farm. You can live here, or you can have another family living here, or you can put anything you want down here. You can grow worms. You can put grow lights down here and grow microgreens or other stuff as you guys in Colorado want to do. Up here, this has got just this space right here alone has got more living space than a typical family 4 has. And you could have, and I'm showing the living room up here and open in front, and I'm showing that you have a garden overhead, but the walkways would be graded, like have steel grates and windows, skylights, so the sunlight should shine down through here and over here. This is showing kind of a low sun, by the way. This is the courtyard. And I've got over the courtyard a hydroponics given another growing area. So this would actually be more than 1/10 of an acre. This is like a 5%, no, yeah, 5% more. So it's a 1/15 of an acre actually. And then I've got over here solar arrays to collect sunlight for running electrical systems. I got, since your bathroom over here, I got the solar water over here close to the bathroom and kitchen area. And then you could put garages down there too if you wanted to. But that would be a huge space down there for working. You could put a greenhouse roof, dome roof. You can do whatever you wanted for a roof here. If you're in space, let's see, I think in here somewhere, yeah, this is kind of me doing different layouts. That's putting a bunch of them together. This is the space concept where I've actually show a level of water over the top. And this could be individual jugs or jars holding the water, as you wouldn't want the whole cylinder to break should you have an event. This is definitely depicted 2 foot thick here on this one. I'm showing gray to invoke the idea of concrete, red to invoke the idea of Mars. But you know, you can do it in different geometries. This is a rectangular system, same concept. And I'm thinking I might build one of these behind my house, by the way. That's how you could arrange a living area inside if you make it a 6-sided structure to build a honeycomb. And if you do honeycomb, you might have an open courtyard between the homes. And I'm looking at different ways of sharing that interior space. So that's what it looks like, Rex. And you could have several of these. Now, if you want to do a community or a tribe, you could have several of these together, be very defensible. I mean, these things should be almost hurricane wind proof, not waterproof. You want to be above the tidal zone. You could be tornado proof, almost earthquake proof. It could be, fireproof, very resistant to fire, depending on what you build the subfloor out of, the upper area. But you can build this stuff in the dirt on the ground on the site you're building, the dirt and rock right where you're building it, Rex. You don't need a lot of building materials. It may require a lot of labor unless you build it with a 3D printer type concrete mixer. Then you can build it with that much labor. So, it depends on what you want to spend in labor or materials and how you want to go about it. But this could be very affordable to build. If you build with labor, it will be labor intensive and it'll probably cost more than a regular home by a little bit, but you're going to save a ton of money on the energy in the long run and food. You can grow your food here and energy. And if you're too lazy to grow your own garden, we could come up with some 3D robot, 3D printer type robot systems. They could probably handle the growing the garden for you. So, and I show down here in this little shadow behind this, I show putting your rabbits and your fish, your aquaponics system, the stuff that don't want light. And then you can distribute the water around. I show growing on the wall here. You got vertical growing going on. You could grow vertical grow here, although it'd be out of your reach for the most part because that's going to be a high wall. Now you could do this in the you can do this in the jungle and make a where you don't need thermal mass and put a bamboo fortress around. You don't need all these systems. The principal thing of this is size, growing a lot of food in a small area, and have you don't need a workshop. You could drop this down lower profile. Yeah, because this could be your home, your living area. Then, especially if you're way up north, and the sun angles would be better for you. You could, or you could augment it with artificial lighting. You've got solar panels over here. I've got a friend in Texas. He uses solar panels to light his greenhouse in Texas for growing lettuce. So there's, you can set this thing up to catch rainwater off the roof, and the earthship houses on the little area in the back of them where you only get 10 inches of rain per year. And the house and places like that are they're putting their water through a 4-step process, but they got all the water they need, even in the desert. This would collect water over a larger area, and I really am in favor of a higher degree of recycling than what they do. So, because I'm looking at space habitats and more reusability. And by the way, worm operation is a highly reusable system. So you could build a village, you could build a tribe and build these kind of habitats. And you can make them where you've got the defense porch, you can put a moat around or whatever you wanted to. You could make this a very defensible structure. It would be hard for just a bunch of marauders to take it. Now, somebody coming in with artillery, yeah, they could make short work out of you with that. So you got to have some kind of bug out plan. This is where I was doing some calculations, figuring out how much about putting them at sea, in the ocean, how much area you'd take. If you had, Rex, if everybody, the UN projects that the total population of the world, one time they were projecting it would be 9 billion people at the end of the century. They revised it upwards a little bit since, not much. But so if you had 9 billion people living in a tenth of an acre habitats. Uh, yeah, that's my little. Let's see, I'm going the wrong way here. If you had them living like this, you could put.
Can I ask you a real question before I forget? I'm changing the subject, but I need to ask you this because it's important.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, it's a total pattern interrupt. This is way off subject. But are there people that have launched balloons 800,000 feet in the atmosphere?
No.
I didn't think so. Is it possible to do that?
No. Now,
why not?
Let me preface this. You can launch a balloon into orbit, but it is a satellite orbiting as a satellite until the rarefied atmosphere puts enough resistance on it to slow it down to the point that it will drop into the atmosphere and burn like a satellite. A balloon operates on buoyancy. They displace air. At 80,000 feet, you don't have hardly any, there's no air. I mean, once you get to 100,000 feet, you're 20 miles up. And the atmosphere, the density of the atmosphere at 100,000 feet is 1% of the density of the atmosphere on Earth. It is actually the same as the density of the atmosphere on Mars. Mars has almost no atmosphere. We think of an atmosphere, but compared to us, it's only 1%. Only 1%. Now, there are concepts for Martian planes and balloons, but you got to really work hard at the engineering to get something that can stay aloft in such a rarefied air. A balloon can float up to that altitude. A balloon can go a little bit higher, and maybe 110, maybe like 140,000 feet if you really work it and engineer your flight just right. But that is exceedingly difficult. My highest balloon flight was about 115,000 feet, I think. I do have a balloon that we're thinking about trying to go for a world record with. By putting a very small payload called a microsat on. One of my good friends, Bill Brown, builds these little bitty microsatellites he sells, and they put them on party balloons. They float around the world, Rex. They go around the world. And several times he said something around the world. I mean, it's 4 times on a party balloon. It looks like a little bitty miniature satellite. It's got very little weight to it, but they don't go that high in the atmosphere. They just kind of bob around through the winds, and they just keep going. They get caught up in the jet stream, and they just keep going, Rex.
So okay, so that's what the reason I asked is there's somebody that made a claim that they launched these balloons 800,000 feet in the atmosphere, and I was like, okay, where first of all, I was thinking, where's the actual measuring equipment that you were able to say, okay, this is 800,000 feet? Where's the measuring equipment? Where's the video footage? The only thing I'm seeing is a balloon that looks like it's maybe 500 feet up. Like you could have a kite up that high. It looks like it's connected. I mean, anyway, so it was a pattern interrupt. Thank you. I would love to do an independent podcast in the future on that balloon you're talking about. I will help fund that in any way possible and sponsor that with, I'll take out the top ramen money and I'll do what I can, man. That would be amazing to launch a balloon and go for a world record. You folks, we're talking to a world record holder right now. Nanu. He has a record in the Guinness Book of World Records for a rocket that was launched into the atmosphere. And it didn't you say it hit it hit some kind of dome and
yeah, Rex, I got a chunk of sky in my backyard.
it hit a dome, right? And went boom. No, it hit a dome. It went like this. When it hit the dome, it went dink. Show that real quick. Turn off your screen share, can you, and show that, please?
Let's see. Oh, the screen share. Yeah. Hang on. We'll do that.
And then we'll get back to this. We're going to get back to this, folks, but this is a pattern interrupt. This is neurolinguistic programming tactic that Greg uses sometimes. So I'm using it back on Greg. And no, I'm joking. That's my fault because I've got pattern interrupt all the time. All right, check this out. You got to talk. Otherwise, it's just showing me.
Here we go. This is me right here. This is our Halo high altitude liftoff Space Launch 1 rocket. Halo, hang a rocket from a balloon and off we go. We're going to fly a rocket into space. We're going to begin the amateur space race. That's Tim Pickens. And we had a bunch of other guys in there, Steve Mistakus. Quite a few guys in that picture. That's part of our team that launched that rocket in 1997. This is a Guinness Book record we're in. They got the year wrong in here though, Rex. Believe it or not. Millennium Edition. So
ooh. In the year 2000.
Hey, matches my hat, Rex. And Rex gave me this hat after we went through the Mount Hollywood Tunnel and I was describing to him how Marty McFly was rescued by Dr. Brown and Dr. Emmett Brown by flying over and dropping a line down to him and picked him up. I did not know that Rex had this hat to give to me as soon as we got back, the Marty McFly hat. And we were talking about Marty McFly in that movie, and that was just so magical. But the crazy thing was when we were walking through that tunnel, and Rex was chanting, Hugh. And I didn't know why Rex was chanting Hugh. And I'll ask him later. I said, Rex, why are you chanting Hugh? He goes, well, that's a powerful chant. It's kind of like Om. And at the time, I didn't realize it was what, 432 hertz, the A tone. And it happens to be associated with some interesting phenomenology. And I just happened to belt out my Halo song as we're walking down the tunnel. I went, Halo! And on my camera and on Rex's camera, light emanated from my voice. And it's captured by two cameras. It was not a reflection on the wall, it was in the air. And you can verify that by looking, because you can see this light pattern. You can see the wall of the tunnel, then you can see the curb, and then the road. And it had a pattern. And the pattern, it was a compression wave, and it was modulated with the high points where it was, Halo, and by the sound. So it was a modulated compression wave, lit, moving down the tunnel from my voice. Now that sounds crazy. It sounds off the wall nuts, but go look at the video. I got it. I put it on my Galactic Greg's channel, but Rex had the better camera, the better image, and Rex really broke it down and had a lot of fun with it. So, hello. So the funny thing is now, I saw something that just kind of, Rex gave me this cap, and I saw something else. Like, I got to give this to Rex. It was the last one they had, and I sent Rex a DeLorean. Hey, full of Metal Earth DeLorean that he can assemble. So that there it is in his fingers, a DeLorean.
I'm thinking about doing a podcast, actually putting this together, but it might take longer to do that one podcast than it would for me to do normally, 20 podcasts with the whiteboard out. So, man, it is such amazing times that we live in, Greg. And I like the think tank sessions that we can do. And it's nice to be able to have a conversation with somebody like yourself that not only are you a rocket scientist, but you're also an organic farmer, and a worm farmer. And you also care about people, and you bring a lot of light to a dark world sometimes. And I enjoy that. So I think it's good to have these conversations, and I appreciate it.
Rex, I appreciate you, and you've done a wondrous job here bringing together a lot of people that are seeking for and trying to find the truth and trying to find their way through the darkness that's coming at us. And see, that's where I think we can cooperate and collaborate, because we got to get through this muck. And we're into a phase of it now. This is the phase of the first shoe drops. We don't know what shoes are dropping behind us. Maybe we'll emerge from this and everything will be okay, or so we can hope. But the thing is, while we're in this gives us the opportunity to learn how to live and operate differently in ways, some of the ways we should have been doing already, like working from home. And it gives people an opportunity to consider what can they do themselves? How can they make a living on their own with the systems they have? I asked myself that a few years ago, and that's why I started worm farming. So what can I do on my own to feed them on to rakers? And I came up with worm farming and market gardening and things like that. So I can be self-reliant. And furthermore, I can just pick up and go. I can go out in the woods anywhere where I know the plants, at least, and I can live because I can eat the plants. I know how to do it. I know what to do. So I'm, a lot of people, when I'm warning them, they think that I'm scared and I'm panicking and I'm driving fear porn. I'm just trying to tell people how to get ready, how to prepare. I'm not afraid. I'm not scared. I am prepared. And if I have to get up and move, I'll get up and move. I can do it if I have to. Now, I've got a lot invested in where I'm at. I like to hang on to things and keep it rocking and rolling as long as I can. But I'm flexible. I'm prepared to do whatever I've got to do. But, the time may come. If we're the world, so this show, is marked as being how do we stay out of the New World Order ultimately, and how do we do that? Well, there's a lot of things to do. One, we can try to push that New World Order off. We keep it from hitting us. In one of my recent videos about the bug that's going around, I put up the Capitol Hill switchboard number, and I showed you a couple of bill tracking website on there where people can go in. I said a couple of them. I did one, and I had a link to actual bill. So there's several of these that you can go to and see what's going on. So what we need to do is push to make sure that our liberties are preserved. We need to preserve our liberties. So we need to know what is going on with those that would take our liberties from us. I don't care what color party they come from. Our liberties are very precious because that's our means of self-sovereignty. That's our means of assuring that we can stay safe and not having to rely on a system that may ultimately not care anything about us. Because typically, especially one-party systems of any party, get very corrupt. Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts. Absolutely, as enunciated by Lord Acton. I marry that with two other axioms that are well known. Birds of a feather flock together, and also, what was the other one? He who has the gold makes the rule, the golden rule. Now, that version of it, that is. When you take these three in context with each other, you're going to wind up in a society that in where the corruption grows, graft increases, you get overarching bureaucracies and things that does not serve our purpose. They serve their own purpose. And so that's why I say, let's just unplug. Let's take the power from them and create our own little communities and live within ourselves as much as we can. Now, we'll still have integrated systems. We'll still have internet. There'll still be industry. There'll still be space flight. But we can certainly put things more in our favor. And if it comes down that they're coming down with a jackboot that's aimed right at our neck, then we move. Don't sit there and lay there for it to snap you in the neck. Get up, roll over, move. But that's where, if we have to, we go out in the woods. We go really tribal, nomadic. Hopefully it doesn't come to that, but we have to be prepared for it.
You know, it's interesting. I was bringing up the other day, Greg, how this hysteria in supermarkets and how people have been getting really nervous about what's going on. And hey, I get it. I understand. What would happen if they couldn't go to the store and they had to start taking care of themselves, growing their own food? What if they had to go out and get a deer? Me personally, I've never cleaned an animal before. I would have no idea how to do it unless I watched somebody do it first. I'm not, I mean, so with that being said, I could learn. I would definitely, and if it's survival, yeah, you better believe I'm going to pick up on it, but it's going to be something that would be completely new to me and the majority of the world, just because we are in a corporatized world that has been a part of a globalized system where you get your orange juice at the store and it comes from overseas. It might be grown here. They'll be like, oh yeah, it's grown in Florida, but they grow it in Florida, then they send it overseas. They put them in vats for, months, and then they add stuff to them. And anyway, it's just a whole nasty process. So it would be great to see things. The food, I've noticed food tastes different too. Candy bars taste different than they did 30 years ago. Even fast food tastes different than it did 30 years ago. Canned goods taste different because they're adding different chemicals and additives, etc. So it'd be nice to kind of go back to that micro community, localized, or maybe more stuff here at home. And if you're somewhere else, have stuff grown in your local area as well. And then that would also cut down on the pollution, like you said, and we could take the power back. This is going to give people a lot of opportunities, man. A lot of opportunities. Is that you, Odin?
Yes. Oh, by the way, my son gave me a pendant. Let them that recognize it know what it is.
Gandalf, is that you? So in finishing up this amazing podcast, I'd like to thank everybody for being here with us. I think you're all fantastic. Make sure to hit the bell so that way you'll get access to the latest podcasts. We're on Patreon now. We've got over 3,000 podcasts on our leakproject.com website, exclusive content as well. Check out Green Greg's YouTube channel. He's got 2 of them. Make sure to subscribe. I've got the link in the video description box. And also, yeah, click that link for the, oh man, I'm going to take another sip of C60 before we finish up. Anything else you'd like to say before we wrap this up? Yeah. You got a bottle of C60 in the mail too, by the way.
Hey, well, thank you. Thank you so much. That'll be great. Maybe it can help me get my psychic abilities perking a little harder. There we go. But so when you grow your own stuff, you can grow good, clean, organic food that's not contaminated with chemicals. This is turmeric. This is highly medicinal. I grow this in large quantities. And so the food you grow yourself will be fresh. It'll have more vitamins in it. It's going to be more nutritious. It will help your immune system. It will help you fight more different versions and different varieties of cruds that may go around. It's going, microgreens like 40 times more nutritious than a full-grown vegetable normally. What comes out of the farms is meant to be able to survive on shelves for weeks on end. So it's not really your best, sweetest, most wonderful vegetables, which you can grow yourself. The nutritional value in them is very low because they don't replenish the soil with the micronutrients, the minerals, the rock dust. They just use NPK fertilizer. And so your vegetables today are mineral deficient. Americans are highly deficient in magnesium. It's causing a lot of heart problems because it's just not being put in the food, and they don't care. And that's what you're going to get if we go to more globalized systems. Let's break the chains for globalization. Let's decentralize and go more local. Buy from your local farmers, grow your own. And also for hunting, if you want to, if you're relying on hunting deer, they're not going to be around for long. You got to learn how to live smaller, and you don't want to give your position away all the time either. I did a video showing you how to use a blowgun. This is one of my blowgun darts. This is a very, and I've seen a video of people, actually one video of a guy killing a bear with one of these very same kind of darts right here. Now, not that I plan to go bear hunting, but the idea is that these are, pretty lethal for a blow dart, and it's not a poison dart. It's just the projectile itself and what it can do. They're pretty interesting, pretty amazing in their ability. So, and yes, I have hunted. I haven't actually hunted in decades, but I definitely have done a good share of my years growing up, so I can definitely do that. I haven't had a need to do that of late, but if I needed to, I could absolutely go back to it. I do know how to skin animals and prepare them, how to preserve hides if I need to. And so these are skills that people need, but just bear in mind the large game animals aren't going to last very long at all. So if you're reliant on just using a big bore rifle to procure your food for you, you're going to be in trouble. You do need to know how to grow your own food, how to forage from the forest if you have to. Right, it's better if we can grow our own. And I just did a video, Rick, called Seeds of Survival. And it was a story of the Trail of Tears and how valuable seed were to the Indian, to Native Americans, I should say. I think I said the word Indian probably too many times in that video, and I apologize for that. It's just, the habit of, we have too much. But the Native Americans were in a very, very, very awful place. They were very badly mistreated. They weren't allowed to have anything. So they had a means of sneaking their seeds out with them. And the seed was the most important thing. And I cover that in that video. And I talk about how they did that and what they had to do. And some of it is kind of heartbreaking, Rex, but it tells you the value of seed. And I think I've got some of that. I got some Indian corn seed there somewhere close by. I can pull them up real fast.
Well, while you're looking for that, I'll show you this too. I've had this for a little while. This is an acre worth of seeds right here, heirloom seeds. So these are heirlooms, and it's a whole acre worth right here.
Look at this, Rex. Look at these seeds here. This is Indian corn. Isn't that pretty? Isn't that beautiful seed? That's beautiful. So I appreciate the native societies of the world. They did have a lot of value, and we really looked down on them. We've forgotten that they had a lot of sense of family. They had a lot of sense of togetherness. They had an identity, and we took a lot of that away from them. But there was real value in that. We've lost that in our society today. We've lost extended families where we move around. If we can go back to the kind of communities I've said, you can have any kind of job in the world, work with any kind of corporation. Pretty much, if you're using the working home technology, if you're doing 3D printing, you could create your own businesses, your own means of growing stuff. So you could entirely live within a community anywhere you wanted to today and not have to move to chase a job. You could keep your extended family. You could, when I grew up in the neighborhoods I grew up, neighbors were family. I mean, they're neighbor families I'm still as close to as I am my own family from where I grew up. That's the way it used to be. Where I'm at now, it's not like that. I mean, neighbors are practically strangers. And we've got to get out of that and go back to the ways we live, because our kids had more reinforcement back in the day. Today, if a kid gets mad at mom and dad, they might go off and do something crazy that in my day they wouldn't even think of doing. Because you might be mad at mom and dad, but you'd always worry about what would grandma think, what would aunt so and so think, what would uncle so and so, and you would not want to embarrass them. And so that would be a check on you from doing something just totally abject crazy. So the extended family had a lot of power for bringing up children and for building a more stable society in the long run. Not to mention, it was, it's a very nurturing environment, and there's a lot to be gained when you have that kind of camaraderie in family and friends. I feel like we're a virtual family in the elite Leakverse. You know, when I was at LeakCon, it was like a family reunion, Rick. I mean, you know, I was meeting people that we had conversed with here in the chat rooms and, you know, internet through these shows, and suddenly you're meeting all these wonderful people. And oh my gosh, Rex, it was a real heartening experience. I really enjoyed it. It's too bad we can't meet like that right now, but maybe in the future, if we develop our micro communities and get people vetted, we will have ways to, even if stuff is going around. And hopefully we'll have our summers and springs between these kind of events that we're living through right now. But we've got to be prepared, Rex, because I see this as something that's going to be more common. I see it as a way of life that's coming upon us. And so I think we need to be prepared to live this way. I think with what we know now, that we can prepare our society to be more resilient, that we can and should adopt some of these as permanent features, like the work at home, the new industries and things that people do, decentralization. This whole idea we get everything coming from overseas, we send raw materials halfway around the world and build something, send it back to us, and all our stuff comes from one place, isn't working very well for us, is it? So this localization, not globalization, decentralization. I'm no fan of globalization. Now, you know, there will still be industry. We'll still have even international industry. And in some ways, some international communication is good because we need to humanize people around the world. But we've let the powers that be play us against each other. If you go to any country in the world, Rex, you're going to find good people with hearts and minds that are good. But we're all played by the higher powers, and we're played against each other. And that's a tragic thing, Rex, because person to person around the world, we could get along just fine if it weren't for all these other things that have been put upon us. But we do have to shatter and break through some of these worldviews that so limit us. I mentioned the worldviews, the rose-colored glasses, and mine are off now because I want to reach out to you and just say, hey, we got to come together as a community, as humanity, come together in spirit and in love, and kick the new world order into the garbage can. And set our own world order up.
I was going to say, make our own new world order, because somebody said a minute ago, they're like, not the new world order. I'm like, well, think about the old world order. Is that better? Let's make a new one and we'll just come up with a new term for it so people don't look at it as, you know, biblical or dark or something like that. But if you really take those words, new world order. So, okay, it's just a new order of the world. And if that new order of the world is more abstract and independent, and people have micro communities that are connected to a system of others working together, because internet, you know, globalism in a sense can be fantastic, but not on a, I was about to say global scale, but that wouldn't make sense. There's certain products that we're not going to get here, right? There's certain things that maybe overseas are there because of the materials and the locations and the climate and the people there and the structures. Certain things might be better to get in different places. However, with that said, when it comes to our foods and our medicines and our drinks and our technologies, I would think that most of that should be made here. And why would you allow another nation to make something that could be very detrimental if you didn't have, or if it was tainted? Right?
Bingo, exactly. Hey, I got to turn it
my
off.
opinion.
We could call it the green rational order. Grow. Or something like that. Grow. I like grow. If we can figure out how to make that acronym work, grow.
Yeah. Infinite abundance.
Yes.
Infinite abundance. How can you say anything bad about that? I'm sure somebody will have something bad to say about it, but I think it sounds pretty good. Well, Greg, I appreciate it. I'm going to say thank you again for being a guest on Leak Project. Thank you, everybody, for being here with us. Have an amazing day. Think good thoughts. You are what you think, and be the change you want to see. Cheers, Greg.
Bye. Thank you. Good night, everyone.